Hey, by the way, Yama, can you put a link up on the website for the show and everything? I forgot to do that. So, all right, folks,
Yeah.
we are here right now with the post game show. Usually, Greg's kind of running the back behind the scenes thing here. So, we're now, I guess, having to use my technology and expertise, and we know how well that goes when we do this. Yama, I I don't know what to say about this win, other than it was a win, and that's important. That was one of the positives. Special teams was a positive. I like the fact that the offensive line kind of took control of the game at the end of the game, and were able to run the football and consistently pound the football. So that was exciting to watch. Uh, but you should be able to do this, and they should have been able to do this in the first quarter. When they had ample opportunities to score and just didn't. And it isn't on just the offensive line. Certainly, I mean, I think the offensive line actually played pretty well most of this game. It's just the quarterback was just not good. And Jamie, you can't beat anybody with bad quarterback play. You just can't. And I mean, it just I don't know. Obviously, they uh, I shouldn't say got lucky. They made a couple nice plays in the block punts, but gosh, if they didn't have those block punts, where would have this game gone? Who knows? It's amazing to think. Um, and as good as the running game was, I think the passing game was equally as bad. It was just not good at all. And this is the second game in a row where we've seen just a very poor, struggling Drew Pine, and it doesn't look like it's a confidence issue. It doesn't look like it's it's just he's just flat missing, just not even close on some of these throws, and a lot of people you kind of read the game day chat and people discussing and things, and it's like, well, bring in Angeli. And look, I think the time for Angeli is over now. You've got two really important games coming up in Syracuse and
He'll get
Clemson.
destroyed if they
Yeah,
put
I
him
mean,
in for
you
this.
just you can't put him in now. You're set him up for failure. If you were going to put him in, it would have been the last game in this game to put him in and give him a shot just to see what he could do. But there's it's Pine or nothing at this point, especially for these next two games, unless Pine gets hurt. That's just the way it's got to be. And I mean, watching these last two games, I don't have a whole lot of faith. I just don't, and I don't know how anybody could that they're going to be able to beat Syracuse and beat Clemson. Sure, it's nice to see the running game, and that's certainly going to help. But I mean, again, UNLV runs for how many yards on Notre Dame's defense? And granted, they're everybody's like, "Oh, they're two big plays." Well, those plays count. I mean, of course they count. They put them in position to score and score touchdowns. So yeah, the defense did a good job 85% of the time, but Air Force held this team to 7 points. You know what I mean? Just last week. It's just I don't understand. It's frustrating. It just should not have been this kind of a result. And I think I speak for a lot of Irish fans. This is a frustrating performance. Your thoughts, Yama?
I actually messaged Matt and Christian during the game that this team is really just not fun to watch.
No.
It's I would say even the 2016 team. I understand that team only won 4 games, but those games were at least entertaining.
Yeah.
um, this was not a fun game to watch. I think obviously there was a lot of. I want to say like the defense. I mean, UNLV was 0 for 12 on third down in the game. So, and really, if you think about it, if they just basically let Harrison Bailey go on a couple sacks that it basically end the game, and then they don't get those more points. So, I'll give them a little bit of a break. And obviously, too, they did a lot of good things in this game, but those
Yeah.
runs, obviously, those are concerning. Definitely concerning. The second one I think, was even more concerning for me because the first one was DJ Brown, it makes that tackle whatever, it's an 11-yard gain. The next one, like, get off a block. Like, way too many guys stuck on blocks.
Yeah, anybody.
But I think, like, overall, it's the thing. The defense is good enough. They're not great. They're never going to be great. That's not what they're going to be. Like, I don't see that happening with the defense. I just think some of it now is what they are, who they are. But it's the offense. Like, it's weird to say, like, you score 44 points, but the offense didn't really play well. They didn't. I mean, specifically a quarterback, really, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, and you can say, like, they didn't run the ball. Like, there wasn't, like, gaping holes the whole time, but they were effective running the ball. I thought Logan Diggs obviously ran really well in this game.
Very
I thought
tough,
it was,
yes.
I
Best
thought
he's
it was
looked
the
all
best.
year. Yeah, by far.
Just physical, stick his foot in the ground, get upfield. And I think he does look like he's the guy going forward, especially
right
because
now.
Esteme fumbled again, right? And that's a concern. But, you know, even if you think about, like, that one amazing Michael Mayer catch, like, that was probably a ball that it shouldn't even have been thrown, really, right? And and I know people would like to rip on Tommy Reese for this game, but when he's scheming guys wide open, you got to hit him.
Yeah.
You got to hit him. And I think there was
I don't think it was a great called game by Tommy, but I also think that there were opportunities that if they would have hit those.
Notre Dame should have scored 70
easily
in the game.
Easily if Pine was on target. But, I mean, you know, you're under 40 or under 50% passing. It's unbelievable. Got our first super chat here. Fire Reese now. Why wait? He's bad and toxic. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. You know, and again, I don't look. There are a lot of things to be upset about with Tommy Reese, but again, I think he called enough good plays for Notre Dame to blow this team out. It's just execution. But guess what? Quarterback is his deal too. And, you know, we've said for the last 4 or 5 weeks, hey, it's embarrassing that this is the best that you have at quarterback. It really is. It's embarrassing. And, you know, and I don't want to, I hate being so negative about players and stuff, but, you know, I cannot remember a Notre Dame, like an actual scholarship quarterback coming in and playing this poorly. You know, you know, unless they were, you know, like a Carlisle Holiday, who was kind of more of a dual threat type of guy, you know, there just really hasn't been. And so it's been, I just wish
even if you look at, like, say, Tommy Reese when he was a true freshman, and obviously there was a ton of limitations then too, but I mean, he was better than what Pine is. But that I think is the most limited the offense that I can remember in recent memory. Like, you know, obviously that's Brian Kelly era, like, not going back to that brutal 2007 season, like that 2010 team after Dane Chris got hurt and Reese took over, they were obviously limited. They won with great defense late in the season. I don't know. I think they're just going to have a really tough time in these next couple games against Syracuse and Clemson, just because I just don't know how it's, unless they just break off a bunch of long runs and just scheme up and hopefully hit on some big plays. I mean, he was 2 of 9 on third down in this game. And I mean, I think there was a lot of times he missed open guys on it too. And the one thing you could say, 8 of 8, they ran the ball 8 times on third down. They converted all 8.
Yeah.
That to me that's obviously a big positive.
That's why they won the game. I mean, it's
well,
really,
it is really why they won the game. And,
absolutely.
But you know, when you throw the ball 9 times on third down, you only convert once.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, I mean, I don't know. You can't even function.
Yeah, no doubt. Interesting comment. OC Tommy Reese needs to tell quarterback coach Tom Reese to do his effing job. You know, that was an interesting take. So, all right, folks, if you got questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. We got the chats fired up here. So if you got questions, just put like a question mark or type question before, and Jamie and I will bounce into it. You know, first question, why didn't Angeli get any playing time? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. I would have thought too, even on that
yeah,
last drive, that would
yeah.
have been something. Even if you're just going to hand the ball off, like which you're
I
probably
thought we
going to
might see
anyways.
him if if the quarterback, or I mean if the defense didn't let up and give that last touchdown, we probably would have saw him. But that last touchdown certainly made it a little bit closer, and so it is what it is. You would love to see it. You would definitely love to see it. But like I said, this is your guy now. This is who you are, and it's damn scary, is what it is. It's I just it was crazy because last year at about this time, a lot of people were like, we got a bench Pine or bench Cone, and it's actually a little bit earlier in the year. I think we're at game 7 now. So
Yeah.
I get that things can turn around, and we've seen Drew Pine play better than this. We certainly have, but that's when Drew Pine was kind of an unknown. But now he is a known, and Jamie, you and I had said all along this was coming. We'd said, hey, you're going to have to be able to throw the ball and show what you can do throwing the football in order for Pine to be effective. And of course, you got to have a good running game. But Pine just hasn't been what you'd hoped. It really hasn't been what you hoped. And so I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens and go from there. Question here: why hasn't Jalen Sneed played this year? Well, I don't think that they got a whole bunch of linebackers in front of them right now. So, Prince Coley's barely played, and he certainly looks like a guy who could do something. So we'll have to see what happens. I don't think we'll see Jalen Sneed the rest of the year. I think he's probably,
No.
unless there's some sort of injury.
Maybe they 4-game and they try
Yeah.
to put him in special teams or something. But
Yeah.
I just the one thing though, because he's working at Rover, so and he's also a guy who played he played linebacker, he played free safety, he played defensive line in 3 consecutive years in high school. So I think he is a freak athlete and he looks so impressive. Like I think the sky's the limit for him. But I think even where you look at, like, say, Jeremiah Wosu-Koromoa, where you're like, oh, he obviously wasn't a day one guy, but obviously you saw what he became later on. And it was a couple years, really. I mean, it wasn't until his 3rd year that he ended up playing. And then even then, he was pretty raw at the beginning and then kind of really took off. I'm not saying it's going to take 3 years for Sneed, but I just think that it was probably unrealistic to think that he was going to come in and be this day one impact guy, even though I do think he has a chance to be a special player later on. I just don't think it was going to be. It's not the easiest transition considering where he came from.
Yeah. Plus, he's also small. It's going to take a while before he gets ready to go. Question: is it possible that ND fans will simply never be happy with anything anymore this season? Is there something that can happen that will make fans feel good about this team? Well, absolutely there is, and that is
they win the next 2 games.
Yeah,
I don't know how anyone could be not happy.
I'll be feeling pretty good if that happens. I wouldn't say that's likely, but it's certainly a possibility. But yeah, I think that would certainly happen. How about Styles today? I heard he had the dropsies. Yeah, I mean that hit him right in the hands. That is a player.
That was a great throw.
Yeah, it really was. It's one of the few that Pine had on the day, and I mean, gosh. That throw that he missed to Tyree, how do you miss that? I mean, it's just unbelievable. And the other one that he threw where he didn't put enough air under it, can't remember who it was. Another easy throw. I mean, there were just so many. There were so many easy throws that any quarterback should be able to make, and he just flat missed them. But Lorenzo Styles, it's got to be at this point, Jamie, where it's almost like mental. You know what I mean?
Mental thing.
Yeah, because he's really struggling. Just trying to catch the football, and I don't know. This is where a good coach has got to step up and help him get through this, and they certainly need him. Especially if your quarterback isn't that accurate right now. Any opportunity for you to catch the ball, you got to catch it because. Who knows where the next one's going? You just don't know. Question: did Indy spend all their week on the tight end playing quarterback? No, I don't think so. But the other thing, Jamie, is that once again, Pine was just focused on Mayer a lot in this game. I want to watch the replay, but when it just seemed like he was just focused again heavily on Mayer and not going through his reads, not looking at anything. And I mean, isn't that Tommy Reese's job? Don't you go in the room after last week and say, dude, you can't do that. All right. I don't want to see that again. And then the same thing happens this week. I just don't understand that. How could that happen again? And the one time that he didn't focus on him where he's wide open on third down for a touchdown, I'm like, what, you've been focusing on him all game, and then one time he is open, you don't even look at him? It's just unbelievable. What are you going to do? So, all right. Well, I'm sure we got more questions. And is Angeli that bad, or is Reese just a stubborn idiot? Well, I don't like calling guys, names and stuff like that, especially coaches. I just look, when you're 3-3, the last thing you want to do is throw something into the wrench like a quarterback controversy. You know what I mean? You don't want to wreck the confidence of the second string quarterback that you have in right now by putting in the third string quarterback, unless you feel like the third string quarterback has a chance to take over for the second string quarterback. Because if it doesn't work out, now you've got a second string quarterback who's, mentally in the trash can, and you got a third string quarterback who, by the way, is a true freshman and wasn't here, to now he's got to start for you. So it's a tough call. But I think that there were opportunities in a lot of these games where they could have at least got him in there and saw what he could do on a few series. And sometimes that's all it takes is just give a guy a couple series and see what happens. But I don't think it's a problem I don't think that they think that poorly of him. It's just I don't think that they want to take that kind of a risk at this point. And I really think that that's what it is. Jamie, when you look at what did you like about today? Was there anything that really stood out that you did like today?
I mean, those 2 block punts were pretty nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have to say too, just with like Brian Mason and the special teams in general, like, I mean, it seems like a pretty obvious upgrade over
huge.
Brian Bolian.
Done a great job.
The special teams has been great this year. They have the same number of block kicks in 7 games this year that they had the previous 5 years. So I'd say it's made a pretty big impact. And you can say, obviously, it's players making these plays. Foskey's making those plays, but like, you set these guys up to make these plays. It's how you attack it and stuff too. And Mason has obviously done that. And then you look at like Mason, the 2 transfers he's brought in too, right? Like those have been big wins for Notre Dame. Where would they be without those guys, right? Yeah. So I think Brian Mason, what you're doing in this game too, like a million people mentioned in the comments here, this might have been a tight game if not for those plays, right? Yeah. And Notre Dame had great field position the whole day because of the special teams, right? So that you certainly feel good about. I think, at the defensive line, I think played pretty well in this game. Obviously, Foskey, it wasn't a good offensive line, but you saw them like dominate matchups that they should. And so that was, I think, a positive. I think even though I don't think he was like lights out or great, but just to see Maris Leofau like come up and get a couple tackles for loss, made a big play just at the end of the game, right? Like, on a draw play, like those are big because he hasn't had any of those, right? Yeah. So I think that's something that's positive to take out of it.
I think it was a confidence boost for Foskey too. He showed up today, and I still don't like him as a run defender. I just don't. But he showed up today in pass rush, and they're going to need him next couple weeks, man. He's got to get ramped up big time. They need him big time to step up these next 2 games if they're going to have any chance. So I thought that was a positive. And then, look, we talk all the time, Jamie, about teams know you're going to run. I mean, they knew Notre Dame was going to run the football those last 2 drives. They knew flat well what was going to happen. They geared up to stop it, and Notre Dame still jammed it down their throat. I think part of that was great running by Diggs. I think he earned some of those yards himself. But I think the offensive line did a good job of getting push. And so that's encouraging. It's just, gosh, if you could get the quarterback, I mean, really think about it, Jamie. If you could just get the quarterback to play and even hit half those plays, we're laughing about this at this point. We're smiling. Everybody's in a good mood. But
yeah,
you can only go as far as your quarterback's going to take you. So we got some questions here. Greg, hey buddy. Greg, I know Greg really well. All the passes to May are designed, or is it Pine just kind of staring him down? And I think, it's. I think that he's a main target on a lot of it.
Yeah, some of it is
he's the main target on a lot of it. But you can't. You have to get off that target too. You can't just sit on that target the entire time, and that's what is happening. So, next question. Do you think Buckner would be playing better at this time in the year if he were healthy? That's a very good question. I gotta believe so. I think so. I think so, especially if the running game got going. Where Buckner struggled was, same thing that Drew Pine has struggled with. Third down, third and long, and because he wasn't a great passer, but now that the running game is going, I think Buckner would be much more effective right now. There's a reason he was a starter, that's for sure. So, what's the concern level for Freeman? I want him to succeed in the worst way, but there are glaring fundamental issues that repeat themselves each week. What do you think there, Yama?
I mean, I don't think that it's enough right now to say, like, even if I think there's a good chance that Notre Dame could go 6-6, and I don't think it's enough to say, like, I think the heat will be on, obviously, next year, but I don't think it's anything where I kind of see that there's limitations in the personnel. And I think we obviously at quarterback, like, if you look at where, I wrote about earlier in the week too, when the last time that Notre Dame had to play a full season with a backup quarterback was when Kaiser had to replace Zaire, right? Yeah. And I mean, no one was confident going into that, but then you saw, like, oh, Kaiser is not a good player.
Yeah,
like he's like, whatever, he's and definitely, like, they had a lot better supporting cast and all that too. But you could just see, like, Kaiser was obviously a talented kid, and there's a big difference between Deshaun Kaiser and Drew Pine. Like, I think if you had Deshaun Kaiser on this team, there's no doubt they'd be fine. When you put almost any other starting quarterback that Notre Dame has had in the last, like, 15 years, and
they'd be 5-1 easily, yeah,
or they'd be 6-1 right now, right?
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
I think that's one of the things that you kind of have to take into account of all this, and with all the other flaws that you kind of see with this team, a lot of those blemishes get covered up if you're winning by this. And there's also, like, to the point that if all of a sudden it's like 40-7 at halftime, well, that changes exactly how you play the second half and how the defense approaches it, and how many other guys, like, guy like Jordan Botello, like, maybe get some reps there at the end of the game. And you see, like, Prince Cully plays the entire second half, like, all of these kind of things. And all of that is predicated on, even if just your quarterback making like 4 more throws in the game that were like gimmies, right? So I think you kind of have to take all of that into account. I'm not saying, like, everything's perfect where you want it to be at in terms of, year one for Freeman, but that quarterback thing, it's a big deal. It is a very big deal.
Absolutely. Does Boy Genius know we can run outside? I assume he's talking about Reese. Well, they did try and run outside a few times. Diggs got tripped up on a couple of them. But I agree. I mean, what happened to that kind of flip play that they used to put out there to Tyree in space out there? They used to run that quite a bit. I think part of it, too, is that, first of all, Notre Dame lost Eli Raridan, and he was a very, very good blocker out there as an inline blocker on the edge. And he's somebody who would be somebody making a lot of those plays, picking off those linebackers and things like that allow those types of outside plays. And since he's not in the game, and I know Mitch Evans is, but Mitch is just kind of getting into it. But I agree. I think that there's some opportunities to be had on the outside that just weren't there, or they just weren't attacked. Okay, we'll keep looking for some questions here. Somebody had somebody wanted us. They wanted to know our predictions on the Syracuse game. What do you think there, Jimmy?
I mean, I'll have to watch more. I mean, obviously, I watched them today, and I watched them a little bit. I watched the Purdue game. I'll have to watch a little bit more before I kind of get a good idea. But I mean, I would say right now, I wouldn't pick Notre Dame to win the game. I like their quarterback. I think he's a little bit limited, but he's a good runner. So I think that's something that would be worrisome. Gadsden's a very good receiver. I think their defense is pretty good, right? And so if Notre Dame, I don't know I don't know how you could pick Notre Dame right now unless you just said, well, Pine is going to look like he's just at home he stinks or whatever, because he was good the 2 games away. So if he looks like one of those guys that that he was at North Carolina or playing against BYU, then I'd say that Notre Dame's got a good chance of winning the game. But I mean, if he looks like this, I just think they have no chance.
I think he was kind of up and down against BYU. I think he made some really good plays, but he also made some bonehead plays too. But I agree. I mean, if the guy that shows up against North Carolina shows up, then they got a real good chance to win that game. But we haven't seen that guy since North Carolina. So, and teams have kind of figured out what he can do and what he does well and what he doesn't do well, and they're game planning against it. And everybody knows Notre Dame wants to run the ball, and Notre Dame is good at running the ball. But I think that this is a game where Reese and Notre Dame's coaching staff got to help out their quarterback in this situation, and Reese has got to get him fixed mentally, because 2 bad games in a row is not a good situation. And I think part of it is the guy only has so much talent, and there's only so much you can do. But I do think he's better and more capable than what we've seen in these last 2 games. I mean, we've seen it in practice. We've seen him play better than this in practice, and I think he can play better. But will he? I really have no clue, and I would bet against it right now just based off the last 2 games. And so we'll just have to see what happens. So more questions. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. Just put a question mark or whatever, and we'll get to them. Question, where is Tobias? Is he in the transfer portal? He played a ton today. They just didn't throw him the ball.
They just didn't throw him the ball, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he played a ton. He was in the game a lot, but just didn't – a lot more like running plays. It wasn't like they just. I thought it was actually probably a step forward, even though you want to see them throw them the ball. But in terms of like him being in there and not just as the guy to come in and just run a go route, So I thought that was good. But obviously, you want to see him get some chances. But I mean, in this game, I doubt Pine would have hit him. Yeah. This is funny. For fun, can we have ND play Iowa in a bowl game? How bad would that be? That would be an interesting game. That would be one of the most boring games ever, I think.
The special teams would be amazing. Yeah.
All right, folks, if you got questions, feel free to ask. And I just don't know what to do here, man. I mean, a guy makes a comment in here that the team is taking on the Marcus Freeman personality. What are your thoughts on that, Jamie?
I don't think so. Like I don't know what does he mean by that? You mean the guy that everybody loves and dresses well? Like I don't.
I think he's saying the stoic, no sense of urgency, no attack, no that type of thing.
I don't think so. I mean, they're aggressive all the time. They go for it on 4th down, like way more than. I think he's actually a lot more aggressive in terms of.
I think it's more his sideline demeanor is what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a BS. I think that's BS. I don't think anyone's like, Brian Kelly's yelling like purple, man, I got to get angry right now. That's just not something that's in the player's head. It's like if they need Marcus Freeman to yell at them to get motivated to play right now, then these guys shouldn't be playing college football, period. I think that's just people looking at excuses for that. It's all comes back to like if Drew Pine wasn't garbage in the game, then you'd be like, wow, man, everybody's loving this. It's just that's just how it is. It's like it comes down to like Notre Dame's quarterback is much worse than than the guys that are playing. He's a bottom tier guy right now. That's just what it is.
Big question here. Given the quarterback room next year, is this going to be the same as this year? Will next year be the same as this year? That's a tough question.
I'm confident they're gonna get somebody in the portal.
Well, I'm sure they probably will, but do you guarantee that guy the job? You know what I mean?
I think you show him the film and you say, buddy, we're not going to guarantee you the job, but this is what we have. So I think, you by process of elimination, I think, that guy, whoever it is going to be the guy.
Yeah.
And obviously it depends on who you get and all that kind of stuff too. But I just would be shocked if they didn't get somebody. And someone has to see it as like a golden opportunity because there's somebody there who is going to say like, I get to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame, really. And that's kind of, what it's going to boil down to.
All right. Got some more questions. Again, folks, if you got questions, make sure you drop them in here. You said any other quarterback than Pine would be 6-1. What about Buckner? Well, we didn't say any other quarterback. We're talking about any of the starting quarterbacks at Notre Dame.
The previous starters, yeah.
With Buckner, I think it's certainly possible. Really think about it. Notre Dame needed to make one more play on offense in the Marshall game and in the last game against Stanford. They needed to make one more play and just couldn't put it together. And I think that quarterback play was a big part of the loss on those games. And, what do you do? And I mean, part of that was, in the Marshall game, part of that was Buckner was not playing well in that game either. So, there's certainly no way to say that if Buckner finished that game that they would have won. He threw the pick and the pick six, and then, everything kind of came off the wheels came off after that. So we'll see what happens. Here's a question. This is a very good question. Do you think our linebackers are going to contain the quarterback run by Syracuse?
I mean, they haven't really contained
anybody
running quarterbacks this year. So that would be one of my big worries in that game is Schrader kind of having a big game.
Yeah. Question here, is the horrendous quarterback recruiting alone enough for you to question Reese's future with the program? I simply can't. It simply can't be this poor at such an important position. I mean, I think that's a very valid statement. Whether that is grounds enough to move on from Tommy Reese, I don't know. That's a Marcus Freeman decision. I guess, and two, the other thing is, do you have faith in Tommy Reese that he can coach up either of these two quarterbacks? Because if you don't get somebody in the portal and there's no guarantee of that, do you have faith that this guy can coach up these guys? He's had them for a while, meaning both of them, and this is the best they can play. So, I'm sure those are questions that Marcus is going to have when the season is over, but there's still a lot of season left to be played. So let's just see what happens. Does Pine play better? He could come out next week and just, play lights out. He certainly could. Whether he will or not is something that who knows what's going to happen. But, I'm sure that those are going to be questions. I think that's a very valid question and point, though. Next one here. If you were in charge, would you make a quarterback change to Angeli? What are your thoughts, Yama?
I mean, it's easy to say that Pine's been bad, so they should go to Angeli. And I kind of thought that maybe not because of ineffective play, but you just get a look at Angeli in this game. But I don't know. I haven't heard enough about. Usually, when someone is really good at like in practice, we kind of hear whispers like, "Oh, Angeli's like
Yeah.
been like he's going to be something. Like he's going to be. He should. He might be good enough to play now." And just haven't heard enough of that. So without being in practice and kind of seeing how it is, I mean, obviously we had very limited showings in the spring and the fall, and I thought Angeli looked like poised was
Yeah.
I think the main thing. So I mean, I would love to see Angeli, but to tell you that I know that Angeli would be the answer right now would be a lie. I just don't know.
I mean, certainly Reese knows more about it than we do at this point, and I think that that's part of one of the reasons is that we're not seeing it is because they do know that. But I think if you were going to see it, you would have, the time to do it would have been the last two games. The time to at least insert him in the game and see what he can do. But when you're playing Syracuse and you're playing Clemson back to back, I think it would be difficult to make that change. But what I would do this week in practice as I would let Angeli know, look, man, if things aren't going well, I'm calling on you.
Yeah.
I got to do something and make sure that he's ready to go. And then, to be honest with you, if things struggle like we continue to see in that first quarter, I look for options. I just do, because we've seen now two games of poor play, and if we start another one and Notre Dame is down and not playing well, and you need a spark, I wouldn't even think twice. I would absolutely at least give it a shot and see what happens, because if Pine comes out and plays poorly at the beginning of this week, I think the answer as far as whether
Yeah.
he can be the guy. You know what I mean? So to me, I'd have a short leash for sure. I certainly would, and I would have a very long conversation with Angeli before this. I'd start today actually and just say, look, we're not getting what we want at quarterback, and I'm not making a change. I'm not saying I'm going to make a change, but if things don't go well next week, you better be ready to play, because we're going to have to do something. And I would absolutely have that conversation with him. All right. Next question. Did you fall asleep during the game like everyone else? My wife did.
I did.
My
I
wife
did
did.
see Tim O'Malley tweeted out that this was the first 2:30 kickoff that he had to make sure that he got caffeine to stay awake during the game. And I mean, I think it was pretty fair. Like the game was, and it was deservedly a peacock game this week.
Yeah. All right. Question here: does the scan offense make it harder to get the young players involved? I mean, the scan offense is basically for Reese. It's for him to look at the defense and figure out what alignment they're in, and you go out with a play, and then you look at the alignment, and then they look over the sideline, and Reese changes it, or he keeps the same play. One of the two. That's exactly what it is. That's the sum total of what they're trying to do there. So, and I mean, I think people forget. I mean, this is what Kelly did when Reese was quarterback in his first year. They did this constantly, and it was so slow, and it was just like pulling teeth. But they also went and played for a national championship year that year too. So it's not like it can't be effective. And look, this scan offense could be wonderful if the quarterback makes the plays. He just isn't making the plays. I mean, nobody would be complaining at all, if he would have hit Tyree, if he would have hit Lindsey, if he would have hit a number of throws, nobody would be complaining. We wouldn't. The scan offense wouldn't be something that anybody be complaining about. But it is, it is what it is, because the quarterback just is not doing it. He said, question, I meant Freeman's personality is running the ball 1,000 times and running out the clock in the third quarter. Okay. I think he was talking about his personality, meaning the team. He was the person who asked about whether it was taking on that personality. So
I think what are the other options? They're going to keep throwing to Tommy Reese. They might end up screwing around and losing to UNLV if they just started trying to throw it all around. Like, I think they kind of had to just run it and just do that, because that was what they knew were going to, they converted 8 for 8 when they ran the ball on third down. They were 1 for 9 throwing. So like, I think, he showed he was a 50% passer in the game. Like, that was if you wanted to make sure you won the game and won it comfortably, that was the right move.
Guy says he's praying for a quarterback in the portal. I agree, man. You can't be. You just, I don't know. That's the thing that just drives me crazy, dude. It just, how can you be this bad at quarterback? And again, I don't want to. I don't want to just criticize and just keep criticizing Drew Pine. And it feels like the Tommy Reese situation when he was a young player, and everybody was just coming down hard on Tommy Reese. And this is a tough situation to be in as a quarterback, but it's not Drew Pine's fault that this is the best quarterback they have. You know what I mean? It's not Drew Pine's fault that this is all that Tommy Reese has to call on. I mean, he's just doing what he's asked to do, and I don't know. I wish there was an answer, but I really don't know. I really don't. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. Freeman says Tommy is doing fine and that his team is good in PC. Is that delusional?
I think he's
What's he gonna say?
Pretty. What is he gonna say?
Yeah, I think he sucks. And we're gonna fire him. At the end of the year.
Is he supposed to say that Drew Pine was horrible?
Terrible?
He missed wide open. Like, he can't say that. And honestly, too, if you think about everything that a coach says is about recruiting, all of these messages are about recruiting. Because if he's criticizing his coaches, that's something that gets negative recruited against. Like, oh, you want to play this? The head coach was just ripping on him in the press conference.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh, you want to be the guy? This is the guy who blames you in the press conference after. All of that kind of stuff's there. He approaches it the right way, because I think Brian Kelly approached it the wrong way, even though he was more honest. And I think in the media, we might like that, and maybe fans like that too. But in terms of what it's helping you with the program and helping you in recruiting and all that kind of stuff, the way Freeman does it is he never throws anyone under the bus. And honestly, it's kind of refreshing, because I mean, just think about that. If you're ever going to get some of these guys to play, or if you ever want to have them to a chance to kind of be better and improve, you're not going to do it by ripping on them, or you're not going to get anything. If he says Tommy Reese is doing a terrible job right now, what do you think is going to happen the rest of the year?
Yeah.
Like, it's a no-win situation to do that.
And as you pointed out, even with Drew Pine, you can't. I mean, you could say, hey, we got to get some more productivity out of our quarterback situation. You could say something like that. But you have a quarterback who is struggling mentally, clearly. And if that's the case, then it's going to be, you don't want to wreck his confidence, because the next guy in is a true freshman that you're obviously afraid to play. So if you're afraid to play him, you don't want to wreck the confidence of the one guy that you have. And he's the only guy you have right now if you're too afraid to play your freshman. So there's nothing positive can come from getting up there and criticizing your own coaches and players. It just isn't a good situation. All right. Why don't they ever run the ball from under center? Well, they did today with Mitchell Evans a couple times, and it was good. But there's a lot of reasons for it. First of all, you have to practice the center snap. That takes time away from being able to practice other things. And so that's why a lot of teams are 100% gun, is because, if you have to run a bunch of plays under center, you have to practice all that with your center. And of course there's, formation advantages and things like that. And then, look, if you got a 5'11" quarterback, if you keep going under center with a 5'11" quarterback to run the football, that's a tell, right? And what you don't want is then to take your 5'11" quarterback and then have to make him drop back for a pass to try and break that tendency, because he struggles to see the field as he is at 5'11". So those are a couple of reasons I can think of just off the top of my head. Anything you want to add, Yama?
Well, I just think if you look at college football in general, there's very few teams that line up under center. Yeah. And I just think that's just something that it's the way the kind of game has gone. And there's still, obviously, in the NFL, there's still a lot of under center stuff. But in in college football, there's just very few teams that play under center. Period.
Yeah. What do you think the O-line play seems to be improving as a team, and just as teams are just loading up to loading the box with our quarterback play? I mean, I do think the O-line is played pretty well. There were times in this game where they didn't play quite as well, but I think overall this was a pretty solid game. And I thought they played pretty well last week too, even though they lost. I really thought that they played pretty well. It's just you can't have all the problems that you had executing from the quarterback position. Thoughts, Yama?
Yeah, and I think if you look at too in terms of pressure put on Pine, like I mean, there isn't been pressure put on Pine, and yeah, so I think they've done a pretty good job, and they definitely have gotten like light years better from that first two games, and you got to give credit to every single one of those guys, and you got to give credit to Harry Heasan too, because here's a perfect example. Josh Lugg was like a guy who, you would have said heading into this year, you're like, man, I don't know about Josh Lugg. I think he's played the best football of his career this year, and I think it hasn't been close. So
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, he's played pretty well. He's played, and a lot of the runs today, a lot of the good yards were on the Blake Fisher and
Fisher's really moving people.
Yeah, yeah, he is. This was a much better game for him this week than last week. Question here with the Clemson quarterback, whose name I'm not going to attempt to spell because of the Jack Daniels impaired me. Would he be a good fit? What do you think, DJ? Would he be a good fit?
I don't know. I don't think he's looked that good, to be honest.
Yeah.
He was also hurt. He was actually worse than Pine was last year. If you look at DJ Uwangalele, his numbers last year, he was like under 50% in like 7 games last year. He was really, really bad. And like was, I think, almost like where it was like a yips thing. And he's really improved this year, but obviously got pulled out in this game. And I think probably Notre Dame's probably going to play Cade Klubnik is probably the guy that they're going to see in that game. I don't know. I think Notre Dame could probably do better, to be honest.
Michael says Notre Dame needs 2 elite quarterbacks from the portal. I'm sure they do. The good news, Michael, is you can expect Notre Dame to put up a whole lot of NIL money to bring them aboard. So you can count on that. That's definitely going to happen. But I don't see that. I mean, you'll be lucky to get one. You just will. There'll be an opportunity, and I think that they'll look. I do think that they'll look for, somebody, and they'll probably get somebody. But we'll see what happens we'll see what happens once they get an opportunity. And I don't know. For me, I think you're probably looking for a cone. That's probably about as good as you're going to find. You know what I mean? If you could find a cone, that's probably about as good as you're going to find. So
you're probably going to get a guy who has started, maybe lost the job because of injury, or there was just another elite guy there that he probably could start for a lot of other teams, but maybe he's not starting where he's at. Either that, or you're going to get a group of 5 guy who's been a starter and been very good, right? Yeah. Like that's what is probably going to happen.
It's interesting because, again, we got another thing about DJ in here. And the thing is, DJ's got all that elite talent. He definitely does, but it's accuracy, it's touch, it's, and the ability to process things that seems to be his biggest problem right now.
And I just want to clarify, I'm not saying that DJ is not better than Drew Pine is right now. I'm just talking about if you look at his numbers last year, they were, I mean, trust me, everybody who if you were Notre Dame fans, if that was their quarterback, they would have said no, right? And I think personally, just where he's at right now, I think they could probably get a guy who's better than him that to be the guy they get in the portal. That's just my opinion.
All right. If Tommy leaves Notre Dame, will CJ Carr stick with his commitment? I mean, first of all, I don't even want to speculate that Tommy would be leaving. But I think that CJ Carr likes Notre Dame, and I think he likes Marcus Freeman. Will he stick if that happens? I don't know. It's hard to say. Brent Smith says Pine has only started 5 games and is 4-1. He missed a few throws. There were drops, but he is improving. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't see that at all. I
I
don't see an
know
improving quarterback at all. I really don't. I see a regressing quarterback and a guy
he's
lacking in
looked worse the
confidence.
last 2 games.
Yeah, definitely. I see a guy lacking in confidence and probably pressing. Probably pressing. And that's just what it is. What are you going to do? All right, if you got some more questions, fire them up. So at this point, I mean, how do you get them ready, Jamie? How do you get them ready for? How do you get them ready for the Syracuse game? And I really think that Notre Dame needs an outstanding coaching performance this week if they're going to have a chance to win this game, and they'll need one next week too.
Yeah,
We've seen Notre Dame have good coaching performances this year so far.
yeah.
Obviously that North Carolina, I thought they did a tremendous job in both sides of the ball, and there are times that obviously with the Ohio State game they did a great job, and there are other games as well. BYU, I think they did a really good job getting ready for that game. Didn't execute as well as you'd like, but they still won, but I thought it was a good coaching job. So you got to hope something happens this week, and you have to get this quarterback on track. And I don't know how you do it. How do you pull the rabbit out of your hat? I don't know. What do you think, Aaron?
I don't know about, yeah, that's the hardest part about it. But really, what I'm doing with the defensive staff is, I mean, I'm putting in the work and saying we like and the special teams to say we got to win the game. This is what's got to win the game because I just wouldn't have the trust in the offense to be able to. If you got to outscore them, I just think it's tough. Like I can't imagine anyone would have that much confidence in Notre Dame being able to do that right now. So you have to put it on the defense and the special teams and say like, listen, like to Brian Mason, you got to say like we need to get a block in this game or whatever. Or if this is like a game where you got to run like a fake punt or something like that, this is the game. You've been holding something out the whole season. This is the game because I think that's where you're going to be at. And I don't think they need any problems getting motivated. This is going to be like the Syracuse just lost a close game to Clemson. They're going to be a ranked team. It's on the road. Like it's going to be a big game, very important game. So, the motivation part of it should be there, but I don't even know really like where you just say like, and then I would basically say like offensive line, like, I mean, we got to rely on you to win the game. And that's how like, they're only going to go as far as the offensive line really can take them because you just can't have trust in the quarterback.
Guy wants to know, Cade McNamara, would he be a good candidate for next year? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, maybe. I mean, he was certainly like a fine player for Michigan,
It's
but
kind of
I
a
don't
book,
know.
kind of a book, you know.
He's kind of an Ian Bookish type guy. I mean, obviously, whoever you're going to get, you're going to be limited. The chances of you getting Joe Burrow or Russell Wilson in the portal, it's slim, right?
Yeah.
It's slim. So maybe maybe you're going to get a guy who can be something. And obviously, like, I mean, Kyler Murray was in the portal. Like Baker Mayfield was in the portal. Like some guys who've been great quarterbacks have been in the portal. But is Notre Dame probably going to get a grad transfer? So you're going to get a guy who's going to be like late in his career. And I think all you want is just competence,
Yeah.
right? That's the thing. Because if Notre Dame had competence, they can get to somewhere. And then obviously you want to like, I mean, it just becomes even more critical. You can't just take a guy in 2023 quarterback recruiting. You have to get somebody very, very good there.
That was the next question.
What's,
Yeah. So what do you do for 2023? How low would you go to get one? And I agree. It doesn't do you any good to just take a guy. I'd rather, have an opportunity where, you're not loaded up. And if you have to go to the portal at some point, you do. But I wouldn't just take a guy. It would have to be somebody I felt like at least had a legit shot to compete. And at what point are you there? You know what I mean? I haven't seen a lot of quarterbacks that have been listed that you'd be like, oh, okay, this guy may bounce. Where you're like, oh, I'm, meaning like from being committed somewhere else where you're like, okay, I'm really excited about that. Now, Jackson Arnold wants to come. Well, yeah, I mean, sure, let's do that. Avery Johnson, I think he's a good player. I'd take a chance
Yeah,
on
I would
him.
take him in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah, I'd
Based
take a
on what
chance
they
on him.
got now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so but other than that, there just isn't a lot of guys that you're like, wow, I don't know. All right. Question here. Do you feel that ND plays down or plays to the level of their opposition? Yeah, I mean, I think they've been doing that for a while, and it's frustrating. Why it happens, I don't know. I don't know.
I think some of the reason why it happens at home against Notre Dame is the crowd.
Yeah.
I think that is part of it with, there's just obviously not a great atmosphere at Notre Dame Stadium unless it's like a really big game. So I think that might have something to do with it, because what else could it be? Because it's obviously been for, I mean, Mike, it's been like 30 years. like I don't know how many. It's certainly it's seemed to be a thing that, I mean, even you'd say end of Holtz was a problem too, right? Where they would do it. So it's been a long, long time that Notre Dame has always kind of played down to the level of who they're playing.
Frustrating. Absolutely frustrating. Question: would ND step in if we started to get a competent quarterback transferred to ND fund?
What a question.
Well, I don't know if they'd step in. I don't think there's anything they could do.
I think the problem is they can't do anything.
They
so
can't
if you
do
want to
anything.
start that,
Yeah.
start up your NIL fund, call it, get a competent quarterback to transfer to ND. And you know what? If you can get people to give out money for it, hey, they can't stop you.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of NIL, I guess.
Yeah. It I wouldn't call it that per se,
No, I wouldn't be that obvious, but
yeah, but it's obviously the Jordan Addison thing worked out for SC. So there's certainly an opportunity to do that, and there's really nothing Notre Dame can do about it. It's just there is a whole lot of things that go along with that as far as you start a fund and who's going to manage it. You got to file all kinds of filings and all kinds of legal stuff and accounting and all kinds of crap that has to go along with that. And that's been the biggest problem, really, is nobody's just done it. The only person who has is Brady Quinn. And speaking of which, I did an interview with Brady. At the end of this week, we'll have a story. I'll put that up later, or I guess early part of next week. I talked to him about NIL and got quite a bit of good stuff from Brady about it. I don't expect. I don't know. Brady's doing everything that he can in his power to do it within the way that he's allowed to do it. Let's just put it that way. And I think that there are things that Brady Quinn would love to do, but there's a lot of blowback on stuff that just is what it is. I mean, this idea that hey, we want to do what Tennessee does and things like that. Well, of course they do, but would Notre Dame allow it is another situation altogether. And so, but after you guys read the interview with Brady, I think you'll just have a tremendous amount of respect for the guy, because I mean he's just a tremendous individual, really is, and has really gone way out of his way to make this happen and do it the right way and operate within the confines of the way things, Notre Dame wants things done. It's a tough road. It really is a tough road. And unfortunately, I think Notre Dame puts those roadblocks in front of a lot of this. And, that's their interpretation of it. Whatever, man. It is what it is. It's frustrating is what it is. But, we'll see. All right. See if we have any more questions, Jamie. It doesn't look like we have any more questions. Anything you want to add before we shut down the live feed here, buddy?
I think, there's some stuff you take away from this game and feel really good about going forward. And I just think that it's really, I totally empathize with all Notre Dame fans who look at this game and they come out of it and they think like, how can we beat Syracuse? How can we beat Clemson with the way the offense is and what they're doing on offense? And the truth is, I think they can't. They can at this point unless it gets a lot better. And I mean, who knows? Hopefully, it's been trick or treat with Drew Pine. Hopefully, it's treat next game.
That's all we got to hope for. That's their only chance. If you can get the quarterback fixed, Jamie, they have a chance to win the game. They honestly do. And especially with the way the offensive line has really come together and started to run the football. But quarterback's got to play better. And it's not just on the quarterback. Lorenzo Styles got to catch the ball. Guys got to catch the ball. They have to catch the football when they're given the opportunity. All these wide receivers want opportunities. Well, when you're given the chance, catch the football. Drew Pine will look your way if you catch the football. So it's just, a lot of things have to get better. Did like to see that the Jaden Thomas play today. I'd like to see more of that. But again, Drew Pine's got to get off of Mayer, find some other guys. And, and it's so much to the point where if I'm Tommy Reese, I'm like, you know what? Mayer's not even going to be the first read. You know what I mean? Because you got to get out of this funk of just constantly focusing on him. And again, obviously Mayer's a great player and you want to get him his touches. But, I would definitely design things that just force your quarterback to that's not your first read and you can't lock onto that guy. And, those guys can win. They can make plays. You just got to get them the ball. And there's so many times in this game where there were guys who were wide open. Even in the red zone, there were guys that were wide open and just didn't happen. Speaking of that, Notre Dame's defense got to fix their red zone defense, Jamie. It's terrible. Just terrible. And they can't stop anybody.
Not that good.
They can't stop anybody. It's terrible. And I don't understand. It's almost like a give me, Okay, it's inside the 20. Just give them 7. Let's just why even deal the why even do the plays at this point? Just give them 7. It's really bad, and they need to fix that. So, all right, that's going to be it. I know Yama's got to do his stuff. I got to do mine, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't. Check out Irish Sports Daily if you're not a premium customer, and we'll look forward to talking to you all week and getting ready for the big game against Syracuse. Thanks for watching.